Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
Unfortunately, we're not getting the cooperation that we need. The one that is running things now in the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi sits at the head of it, but the COO, so to speak, the person who actually runs it, is Todd Blanche. And Todd Blanche is failing on all measures. Because of him, we haven't had a pardon granted since May. Because of him, he wants the J6ers to not be compensated for all that we put them through. Because of him, we're not getting the things that we need for Dominion machines, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this guy used to be, until January 4th, 2024, he was a Democrat, a registered Democrat. And then he represented Donald Trump on the Stormy Daniels case that any Democrat would have done the same job. But I don't know that this leopard ever changed its spots, because for some reason, everything that needs to be going forward in order to make Donald Trump's presidency work is being stalled intentionally by this man. And it's not because of ineptitude. This is a smart guy. This is a very capable guy. And it's not because he's not capable. It's because he's intentionally doing things the opposite of what Donald Trump has ordered to be done.
Well, welcome back. Talk a little bit about Peter Tickton, who's kind of ticked. By the way, I want to say happy birthday to Peter Tickton. It was his birthday on Friday. He turned 80 years old. And I got to spend some time with him at the Coomer deposition and when he was assaulted by Coomer's attorneys. And I can tell you unequivocally, 100%, he's not wrong about Todd Blanche. He's not wrong. So why? Why? Why are we having to continually deal with people inside of the establishment on our side, right? We should have come out the gate in the last year and solved all these problems and then got to the restoration part for the next 3 years. We're still working on right now, just getting through the basics. Here's a post. Here's DOJ sources. Tell me that Todd Blanche, a registered Democrat, through 2024. Let's put this up. DOJ sources tell me Todd Blanche, a registered Democrat through 2024, fired Ed Martin on December 31st and effectively shut down the Weaponization Working Group office. Blanche cleared out the WWG suite at Maine Justice to make room for the latest Epstein file production. Blanche denied Martin's staff and budget and is gumming up the works for Russiagate accountability. This is. Let me just tell you what the. Let me play some baseball with you just a little bit. You release stuff with the Epstein file, get people concentrated on that, release 3 million files, do all of this stuff. You're still not going to put any of the haves in jail. You're just going to get people salivating over the idea that maybe we can hold someone accountable. Yeah, there'll be a few disgraced faces and people that are in those files. I mean, hell, you have Steve Bannon all over it having conversations with Epstein about Kavanaugh, and that Kavanaugh was their choice, was Jeffrey Epstein's choice. And say, yeah, we want Brett Kavanaugh. That happened. I have the receipts, saw it. And then Steve Bannon is having conversations and talking about women disparagingly. It's kind of a neat little exchange of ideas. But nobody's really talking about that. Everyone's really quiet about it, except for Todd Blanche wants to make this a full production so we can get away from the real things that have to happen. So here's a post I put up in response to it. Pardon my language. What the F, Todd Blanche, a traitor of epic proportions. What else would you call it? And if that's not enough, here's a video put out by Emerald where Vance Day, senior counsel for Todd Blanche, literally referred to, this is someone really close to Todd Blanche, referred to parents by the Biden DOJ as terrorists in a meeting with a parent asking for accountability. Play it.
I think these politics are easy, because who's going to believe a school mom is a terrorist? I mean, honestly.
Well, and I agree with you on that. But when you put stuff out into the biosphere of the media and says, you better do something by January 15th or else, my response is somebody who was a journalist and has a master's degree in terrorism. So my response, as well as the whole DOJ, was, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Do not threaten us.
Where was the threat?
Where was the threat? No, see, what Vance Day is actually saying is, you're a plebe, you're a slave, you're a serf. We can do with you whatever we want. Don't threaten us. I have a master's degree in terrorism. I don't have a master's degree in terrorism. I spent 6 years in the Middle East and Africa. I watched as the lies started to stack up that killed millions of people in Iraq, Afghanistan, Sudan. I can run down the line. Because our intelligence community decided that they were going to try and look good, while they basically destroyed entire societies and didn't respect the sovereignty of other nations. That actually happened. But I'm sure Vance Day knows a lot about that. I think Todd Blanche probably knows a lot about that as well. Here's what that you have to look at. Here's Ed Martin. Here's Ed Martin in his own words. And by the way, I think Ed Martin is truly one of the great people out there. He put up this post. The Spirit shows what is true and will come and guide you into the full truth. The Spirit doesn't speak on his own. He will tell you only what he has heard from me being God. And he will let you know what is going to happen. John 16:13. I do not at any point, I don't think that people on our side are incredibly truthful. I think there is a large group of people that just want to be seen. I can tell you unequivocally, I love doing this show because I want to encourage you on what comes next. But if you had to ask me if I enjoy being in this fight, I don't. I like peace. Frankly, if you never knew my name, it would be okay with me. Why? Because I just really like helping people. I go back to doing what I did and mentoring guys to get out of prison and, making sure kids can go to school and, just trying to do my part and taking technology and making it easier for people. That's what I'm all about. And anyone that's ever met me, worked with me, worked around me, knows two things about me. One, I will tell you the truth. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. It's all about facts, not about feelings. And number two, which is probably the most important out of all of this, is that I personally don't care what anybody says. I don't care. I wake up every day with the same idea in mind, that is pursue truth at all costs. I had a friend who I haven't been able to spend a lot of time with yet, but I want to talk a little bit about him because I met him on the show. He's a regular on the show. His name's Dave. And Dave lives in Colorado, super smart guy. He's given me a whole lot of advice for free, right? Just to say, hey, look, this is some of the things I want to do. I have been really, really busy, so I haven't had a chance to sit down with him. And then I had a family emergency. I had to fly out, and it ruined one of our meetings. But he told me not to talk as much about Victor Marx, the negatives of it. And it's in my show today, so I'm going to go through it real quick. I see that our guest is on, so I'm really excited to actually spend time with him and tell you who our guest is today. But I just want you to know that I'm going to play this video because I believe that if Victor Marx would not have attacked me, if he wouldn't have lied about me, because remember, I'm vicious when it comes to the truth. I don't really care. I mean, if I'm wrong about something, I will admit I'm wrong. But you can't lead and do what it is that is coming out about Victor Marx. And so I'm going to play this real quick. And this is a guy named Free. He's a Marine as well, based out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. Just reached out to Victor and said, hey, look, I just want to do an interview with you. Everyone else can give me an interview. You won't. And you're running away from me and you're running away from debates. And then people started popping up out of everywhere to give Free some. And by the way, I did not meet him and I have not yet been eyeball to eyeball with him. I did say that I'd give him an interview, but let's go ahead and play it.
There was a young lady who was trafficked, and I just want to take the time to thank the El Paso County Sheriff's Department here in Colorado Springs. I also want to take the time to thank the Harris County Sheriff's Department out in Houston, Texas. If it wasn't for them, they would not be able to locate the woman that was trafficked. She was taken from Canada and she was moved to Colorado Springs, and she was taken to Texas, and then she was taken back to Colorado. And her boyfriend worked tirelessly to find her and bring her back home. And if it wasn't for the deputies that were able to find her every time she sent out a message and tried to tell her boyfriend where she was, she's never been here before, so she didn't know. But if it wasn't for them, then we don't know where she would be. This young lady, she was trafficked through a nonprofit organization. And if you know the work that I've been doing, looking at these nonprofits, looking at all the Medicaid fraud, this is something that is very simple to do. But this young lady, she was trafficked through a Christian ministry. And the person who owns that ministry is Victor Marx. And as I talked to her boyfriend, the man who is the hero for making sure that he brought his girlfriend home, I sat there and I thought, how many times has this happened? And not only that, but I thought, maybe I can interview this couple. And of course they said yes, because they want justice, and I would want justice too. But for now, I just want to thank the deputies in El Paso County and the deputies out of Houston, Texas, for making sure that this young lady made it home.
Before I played that video, I had to make sure that what I was saying was correct. I had to make sure that it was validated, and I had to make sure it was real. I think it's important that we pursue truth no matter what. And me running for governor has nothing to do with the fact of going after Victor Marx. I actually, if you go back and look at my posts previously, I said, if Victor Marx decides to run for office for governor, I'll support him. I went to Victor's house and met with him. I sat there and I had some coffee and sat with Victor Marx. And it was when I was walking around the property, I was a negotiator for 6 years. I read people very well. And something didn't sit well with me, and the places that he said he'd been, I had been. And so I asked questions, and he couldn't answer some of the questions. And then I just asked questions about what his platform was, and he couldn't answer those as well. Look, I run a company that does hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. I started this company 14 years ago. I'm a business guy. I'm a problem solver. I'm in multiple industries. I also spent a vast majority of my time helping people. When I see stuff like this, after I've done stuff to help people, women and children that have been trafficked, I have no interest, no appetite for it. So let me just tell you, we're going to come back to this in a bit. This guest is probably, I am really excited about this conversation. So Graham Moore's from the UK. He's an election fraud expert. He's a constitutional expert. And he's an expert on the English Constitution, its history, principles, and powers to restore justice and freedom in modern times. He's dedicated his research, and he's a dedicated researcher and advocate. 30 years of studying the English Constitution, providing insights as a layperson and a registered paralegal. He occasionally serves as a McKinsey friend, offering strategic support in constitutional cases and assisting members of English Constitutional Society, the ECS, facing arrest charges and needing legal guidance. If you don't know what's happening in the UK, you're not really paying attention. From the vast number of rapes and victimology that's been placed upon the people of England while allowing people to run amok over over the populace, people that have been there for generations, are basically being pulled out of their homes. I have friends that live in the UK, or you can't drive your car in here, you got to pay a special tax. It is probably one of the most oppressive environments you're going to see in any country around the world. Let me say it again. You have a large populace that's inside the UK. It's be interested to see whether or not he believes this or not. A large populace inside the UK that doesn't even understand that they are slaves. And it's been going on for a long time, that are basically being held hostage by radicals, people that are one generation, similar to what's happening in the United States. And this all came about because of the same fraudulent intelligence that we have in the United States that has been stealing elections state by state by state by state. What they brought here to the United States first 2 decades ago, they started there 3 decades ago. And the systems and the technology that they use in the UK that has stolen the sovereignty of that nation and put police officers on every corner to say it's a hate crime, to speak your mind, to speak what God gave you, the ability to speak your thought. No. They now have thought police in the UK. You can't pray on a corner in public. You can't advocate for for babies being preserved. You can't say that somebody that is Muslim that does something bad to you. You're not. I'm going to say this because I don't know what his limitations are for what he's allowed to say and not say, but I've studied it. And if you want to know what oppressive is, you can look no further than the United Kingdom, because it literally is they've got to find a way. And I know they're doing it, by the way. I know that they're in pubs. You go back and look at history. They're in pubs. They're in churches. They're meeting in large groups. They're doing it without cell phones. Because if you also want to know about the surveillance state, look no further. The surveillance state inside of the UK is the blueprint for what they're doing in the United States, almost identically. So he also hosts the full English show on Rumble. I just went over and followed it. You need to follow it as well. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. And so, Graham, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Joe, for inviting us. And I've got to tell everyone listening to this, especially the American audience, your introduction was not only passionate, it was honest, and probably one of the most truthful introductions I have ever heard doing the show. You just described exactly what is going on, and that system of corruption has been exported to the United States of America. So people need to understand Sadiq Khan is currently the mayor of London because of the Dominion voting machines that were operating in the London election, right? So what's going on now has been exported from England.
Well, let's get into that real quick. The Dominion machines, we have whistleblowers from Venezuela, we have whistleblowers from Serbia, we have whistleblowers from multiple countries that were involved in intelligence operations related to U.S. and British intelligence. It's very important. Yep. That pinpoint that these machines were used and stole elections in nearly 70 countries around the world, the UK being one of the first.
Yep. So just to make sure everyone, so before we get into this, make sure that people understand this simple thing. I am English, not British, right? So Americans sometimes can't get their head around that. It's a bit like saying, are you Russian or are you a Soviet, right? Soviet is British and English is Russian. It's the same thing, right? So once people understand what the basis of what we're doing, England is being destroyed, and it is being destroyed by Marxists and communists because they need to eliminate England because it is the beating heart of the United States of America. Why do I say that? Your constitution came from England, not Britain as British. It came from the English. And when you tell the story of the Constitution, your Second Amendment is our Fifth Amendment. We have a Bill of Rights that was exported to the United States of America. We have the right to keep and bear arms in England, right? I've used the English Constitution in cases. We've got a current one at the moment where people have got not guilties, and the barristers and the King's counsels and the prosecution have told the people to sack their solicitor, sack their barrister, here is your defence statement, and it hasn't even gone to the jury. The judge in the Crown Court has found him not guilty because they've used their fundamental constitutional right of the right to keep and bear arms. So I just want people to make sure that they're watching this. You mentioned pubs, right?
Yeah.
They have shut most of the pubs. Most of the pubs have been taxed out of existence. And the reason they did that, and during, I don't know what you're going out on, so I have to be careful what I say. I've been banned on most platforms.
You don't have to worry about being banned on me. Number one, I will literally sue people just for winking the wrong way to try to take away somebody's rights. So you can say whatever you want on this platform, and I have my own platform, and I'm one of the top 0.1% of podcasters around the world. And frankly, I will find a way to get this message out, which I just pushed it out there again to a bunch of people and said, you got to listen to this. This is the epicenter of what we're dealing with in the United States in the UK.
Right. So the peasants' revolt, going all the way back to the 1300s, come from what we call the owl houses, the pubs, right? All of the revolutions that come from England come from the pubs. So they started to shut down the pubs, and they did it by charging business rates, by putting tax on beer, by taxing, and they taxed the working class out of the pubs, right? During COVID, they shut all the pubs down. They shut all the restaurants. They shut the churches, which was disgusting. I know plenty of people over here that are Christians that started their own churches in their garages, right? And from that, they had to shut down the people talking to each other because they knew that once we started to have conversations in pubs, we would say, this is going on. So what did they do? They shut them. I've had to move out of London because of the violence, because you can't walk down the road in London where I lived, right? All you heard was foreigners. People were not talking English, right? And to walk out of where I lived, I used to have to leave my mobile phone inside my house, my wallet inside my house, and take my watch off, right? That's how bad it was. Now, I've moved out of London. I lived in London all my life. When I stood for election in Tooting, in southeast London, which was Sadiq Khan stood down. So I'm going to bring in a story here, and you'll all understand this, right? This was in 2016. Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, stood down because he'd become the mayor. And I stood in his constituency. I've got exactly 50 votes. 50 votes, right? That is an area a mile away from where I was born. 4 jihadis walked up to me in that area. 2 of them pulled out machetes and told me to leave, right? Spoke to the police didn't do anything. Now, that's in Sadiq Khan's own constituency, and bearing in mind, Sadiq Khan was investigated by MI6 and MI5, and a report was put into Parliament because he had personal friends that were jihadists. He was what's known as part of the Tooting Circle. I recently stood in another place in the north of England, completely different demographic, as an English constitutionalist. This is in May last year, and I got exactly 50 votes. It is statistically impossible for the same candidate to get 50 votes nearly 10 years apart in completely different demographics. So they're not just cheating using machines. They were both hand counted. We then took it to court. I won the first set of hearings.
Yeah.
The second hearing was at the Royal Courts of Justice and the Appeal Court, the second highest judges in the country, and I won that case 3-0. 3 appellant judges agreed with me, and we had a trial. But what they did was they swapped out the original judges and put another 2 judges in their place, right? And they then, at the end of the evidence of the trial for election fraud, said that we don't believe there's been a fraud, and then they hit me with £40,000 in that case worth of costs, right? So what they do is, under English law, if they bankrupt you, you can never stand in an election again. It's a way of taking out a political candidate, right? So I'm now 40 grand in debt. They're about to bankrupt me, even though, and by the way, there were 65 people in the gallery. And at one stage, they stood and applauded when I said, these people are communists, these people are Marxists, and Fabian Society are involved with this, and the whole of this count was crooked, right? They have stolen people's votes, and it is against English constitutional law. I used the Bill of Rights, freedom of election, etc. And the situation now is people don't realise that more and more people are not voting because they know how corrupt the system is. It doesn't matter who you vote for. They have demoralised people. 60% of the population no longer bothers voting because they know if they vote for someone, their vote is being stolen, put in the other bundle and counted towards the communists, or what we describe as the Uni Party.
So let me get this straight. They replaced the judges like they did in the case that I have in Colorado. They use the same playbook because it's all written by the intelligence community. They said, just do this. It's very predictable. You know what the outcome is. Matter of fact, they can see it, smell it, taste it. They then tried to bankrupt you and made you pay a £40,000 fine.
They still haven't. It's not a fine. It was for costs. And basically what they're saying, I still haven't paid it yet because we haven't raised enough money. I paid the first 25,000 which was the previous costs, and then I've got an extra £40,000 on top of that.
So tell me what. I mean, look. I mean, we're going to get people to donate to you, but I want to put that aside for a minute because I think that we're onto something here because we've talked about. Most of the time in the United States, one of the reasons why we never get to any consensus of election fraud is because we have 50 states. Each one of those states has their own autonomy. The autonomy of the elections in those states allow them not to necessarily run the elections the same way, even though they use the same substructure or foundation of systems, right? Because it all has to report up same way, right? You're identifying what's happening in your area where you got 50 votes in the place you grew up in. So you know it was fraudulent right away.
Yeah.
The election system they use there are what?
So they're a hand count system, but during so in other words, they get people to come in and they count. So the people who work for the council, they create a team who count the ballots. When we was at the election trial, I was the prosecutor, and the head of the council had to stand there, and I asked the question: are you telling me that these counters who are counting the votes, and remember what Stalin, or was it Stalin or Trotsky, basically said, it's not who votes that matters, it's who counts the votes. So what was admitted in court was a lot of these people counting the votes in the area Runcorn where I stood, Runcorn and Hillsby, they were not from that area. They didn't even work for the local council. They brought them in from Liverpool, St Helens and different areas. They're trained in a fraud and to create an illusion. And then what they do is they'll take, let's say they count 100 or 50 ballots. They take the 50 ballots, let's say they're mine, and then they'll put a Labour or Democrat ballot on the top, a Labour or Democrat ballot on the bottom, and then they put that bundle in the Democrat pile. That's exactly what they've been doing, and we've explained this to the judges. I mean, previously...
Don't you have free access to the ballots? I mean, isn't there an access to the ballots that you get on your... So you don't have access. So how do you have... I mean, this is the same thing we have in the United States. No access to cast vote records, no access to election systems. It should be up for by the people. I mean, the English letter of the law should allow for you to have inspection of those ballots.
Right. So first of all, a year after the election, they destroy the ballots. right? So there's no evidence. 1 year later, they've taken the evidence away. You've got to be so careful of that, right? But this is the important bit. The way they set up the count, the people went so round the edge of the count. So they allow 10 of your count agents to come in, right? And you can see around the edges. So as they're counting the ballots and stacking the ballots in front of you, you can see. But then it gets switched to the middle. This is where I'm saying an illusion comes in. You can't see what they're doing in the middle. They won't allow you access. You're not allowed to use cameras. It's not allowed to be videoed or CCTV. They've got CCTV all over London, but none in a count. It's just so they train these people. This is how we operate the fraud. They bring the people in who've been trained to operate the fraud. The only way that you can massively go against the fraud is if everybody voted. The less people that vote. That's why President Trump was so bang on the money when he was saying to people, you must vote, because they can't cope in that type of fraud when so many people vote. The less it gets, the easier for the Marxists to win and the communists to win. So they demoralise and stop people voting. But the more people vote, the harder the fraud becomes, because you can't keep going over it and doing this. By the way, it happened in Doncaster. They did the same thing and then they got caught. They got caught in Scotland, and when the judge said, I want you to produce all the ballots, they simply said, sorry, we can't find them.
Okay, so let's. I need to. Okay, go ahead.
Because I was at another election as a count agent in Batley and Spen, right?
Okay, yeah.
During COVID, this bit will make you laugh. They cleared out the whole count. They cleared us all out of the count. They took all of the count agents that was keeping an eye on the count. At 2 o'clock in the morning, they come in with bins and took a load of stuff away in bins and took it away in a Luton van or a panel van, whatever you call it in America, and drove off. And they said that was removing, this is during COVID, that was removing some of the PPE, protective stuff, so they had to clear the room. It was obvious what they did. That's how bad it is.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand how you got to a country that has been captured by illegals and immigrants, and how did you get to a place? Where was the tipping point? Who did it? How did they do it? It couldn't have been done without intelligence communities. And why is it that when I went to England, that a vast majority of the countrymen of England have been pushed out of London completely? I mean, family flats that they've had for generations are handed over to an illegal family. And I mean, this is true, right? Am I saying anything that's untrue?
So what you're saying is completely true. London is now, I would say, a city of 20 million people, because they don't actually record how many people are there. From telephone, in other words, mobile phone, cell phone registrations, and from sewage works, they've estimated potentially 20 million people are living there, right? So whatever they say the official figure is, but to say there are 36% of London they now call white British, but technically even part of that is not English, because if you are Polish and you are registered as a Brit now, they will class you as white British. English in London is I would say 15%, maybe 20%. London has been captured, and it's been captured. So you just asked, what was the process?
Yeah.
I could tell you a process that aligns with America, right? And when I tell your audience this, you will be in shock, right? The European Union created with the help of the Union Party, which is the British, and the Fabian Society, who are committed Marxists. Tony Blair is an executive member of the Fabian Society. Sadiq Khan is, etc. We citizens arrested Sadiq Khan on January 13, 2018. Right? Nothing was done by the police. We said he's subverting the English constitution. He's a Fabian, a committed Marxist. Right? What they did was they regionalised England into 9 regions because they are trying to erase England and create administrative regions, the same as Europe. Right? They've already done it with Scotland, but Scotland technically is already an administrative region. They've done the same with Wales. There's actually, the British Isles is made up of 12 European, if you include Southern Ireland, 13 regions. They class it as a province of Rome, in effect. Right? So there's other people involved with it, famous Jesuits, all sorts of stuff. This is all legitimate. When you talk about it, people think you're mad. This has gone on for centuries, right?
Well, that's why I said that people don't know that they're being held hostage. They don't know that they're slaves.
No,
but they've woken up, and little by little they've turned into slaves. Like it's really, and you could see it in the disposition of the English. Like they're just sad. Like it's a very sad society.
No,
and it used to be so vibrant, right? I mean,
we don't need American boots on ground, right? All we need is for President Trump to say, unless you give the English back their guns, we're going to put a 200% tariff on you, right? And then once they issue, by the way, an English parliament, an English passport, which we haven't got, is my birthright, is my license for a firearm, right? And they've taken that from us by stealth, and it happened, and it started from 1921. So without going around the houses, let me go back and tell you how they did it. They brought us into regions. London is a region of the European Union. If you look at the maps, it shows you. They started that process by bringing in the Greater London Authority. Then they erased a Shire county called Middlesex, which was crucial to England and should be immediately reinstated, right? And then they created the Assembly, which is an assembly of the European Union, which they call the London Assembly, which is what Sadiq Khan is in charge of, right? Why is this crucial to America? They did the same thing to America. It was the same blueprint. It started with the Acts of Union, which they didn't need, but this was a long time ago, 1706, 1707.
right.
More things happened in 1948, but I won't get into that just yet. But I will tell you, the blueprint in America is the same. In America, they brought in something called the North American Free Trade Agreement. That was the equivalent of the British Union.
NAFTA.
Yeah, NAFTA. President Trump knew that and took it out because you was bringing Canada and Mexico and then flooding the whole area. You was destroying what the Americans had built up for years, right? Then you had something called 9/11. What did 9/11 create? The Patriot Act. What did the Patriot Act create? A subset of the Patriot Act. The Department of Home Security, right? And from that, they created something called FEMA regions. 10 regions to divide up the United States of America. You then take the states, put them into that region, and then you've got the regions that the European Union is a model, and then that model is controlled by the United Nations. President Trump can see all of that. And they know exactly what and how they've been doing it, and they've looked at exactly what they've done to England.
So I have to address a comment that is in there, and that is they were talking about Katie Hopkins, who I'm friends with Katie Hopkins, and Cuckney Girl says, unfortunately, Katie Hopkins and alike are good people, but they don't get it. They identify as British, the very thing that is doing this to them and us. Explain that to me, because I think that needs to be explained, because people are questioning then, okay, what does that mean? And if I'm saying what does it mean, then I know they're saying what does it mean.
Right, so there is a difference between British and English. British is, some of your audience will understand this, British is a legal fiction created by the British Parliament in 1948. And when it created that, it created a legal fiction that you put British on your forehead. And when you did that, you are no longer, in 1981, they furthered that, the British Nationality Act of 1981, they furthered that and erased English identity, Scottish identity, Welsh identity, Northern Irish identity, and Cornish identity. On all of our documents, we cannot write English, right? The government, the British government, Uni Party says you cannot put English on any document, right? They hand you a British Parliament. So just to make sure everyone's aware of this, in the Soviet Union, you had a guy called Joseph Stalin who created a nationality, and he was the commissar of the Soviet Union. And the nationality that he created was Soviet. So when I went in, for example, to a local shop, and there was a Polish lady behind the counter, and she gave me a British flag because England was playing soccer, I said, "What's that?" And she said to me, "It's an English flag." I said, "No, it's not. That's a British flag. I'm English," right? And then she went, "Well, it's the same thing." So because she was Polish, I said, "Okay, where do you come from?" And she said, "Poland." I said, "Good." I said, "So you're a Soviet?" And her face changed to anger, and she said, "No, I'm Polish." I said, "Right, so do you understand what I'm trying to tell you?" And she said, "I apologise, you're English," right? She understood through that analogy that what she was saying to me was not only offensive to me, but you are stealing my nationality and you are being indoctrinated over many, many years. This goes back a long time. It wasn't always this way. These books I've got behind me, some of them are 300 years old. And it tells you that the Acts of Union was never to destroy England or Scotland, right? But that is what they've done. So getting back to the difference between British and English, when they did a census for the first time ever in 2011, they included English-only national identity. 57% of England said they was English only. Another 10%, so taking it up to 67%, said they was English British, right? They're just confused, right? But my point to you is they then used that information to find out where the hardcore English were. For the men and women who called themselves English, the government then paid £4 billion into Serco, into Mears Group, Clear Springs, for asylum, and they fed that money in and said, "We want you to put people in these areas." So in the Newcastle, Sunderland area, which is in the northeast of England, they flooded that area. Why did they? Because it was 85% English. So by flooding migrants into that area, housing them, giving them money, right? And then they're going around raping the women and children, right? That then watered down the English and raised the British. So when they come to vote, we're being outvoted. And by the way, the BBC, even alternative media, will not discuss this, right? The only person who talks about it is me. And every time my channels on YouTube, I had nearly 100,000 subscribers, they took me out. I built it up to 25,000, they took me out. Built it up again to 2,500, they took me out. The only place that has allowed me to speak but does not promote me is Rumble. They've never given me a strike. They've allowed me to talk.
What about X? Are you on X?
Oh, X has taken, not last year, the year before. This is under Elon Musk. I've got just under 10,000 followers, and they took my account out and wouldn't even tell me why. They didn't even send me and I asked them, why have you taken me out? All I'm about is self-determination for England and the Constitution. That's what I talk about. And they wouldn't even give me the courtesy of a response. That was under Elon Musk. So I've had 3 different accounts on there, all taken out. The prior one to that was 15,000 followers years ago. I took that one out.
Do you have one now?
Yeah, it's called English Exit.
Yeah, I'm following you now. I thought I was following you before. I had seen some of your stuff previously. Okay, so what you're talking about in England versus the British or the difference between the two has a lot to do with the same thing that we have here, where people parrot this word called democracy, right? We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. We were never a democracy. We were never meant to be a democracy. They started this in the 70s, and they call us things that we're not, like we're Americans, period. The difference is that they've taken away our identity by saying we should be ashamed to be Americans because we're on stolen land. They've created this victimology. Similar, by the way, it's the same playbook. It's the same playbook that you deal with. The playbook that you deal with on yours is you're not allowed to speak. They've stolen your tongue, right? Is what you're saying. And so they've stolen your tongue. They've taken away your ability to. They've stolen your vernacular. They've stolen the identity of who you are. Doing the same thing in the United States. It's identical. Matter of fact, you know now that there's a small group of people that are actually promoting this all over the world, and it has to be a small group of people because you couldn't do what they're doing without it being a small group of people. And power. Like, these are powerful people that want to destroy countries, right? And if you want to destroy a country, you know as well as I do, you bring in weak, pathetic people that over the history of the world have really never amounted to much, and you bring them in, and then you make the people like you support them. You become a slave, you fight back, you kill those people, and then all of a sudden they've created a different power struggle, and they've eliminated a vast majority of the strong among us, and they've eliminated all the weak people as well. And then they just start the cycle all over again. Well, they stand above and they basically eat Skittles while watching us kill each other.
Exactly.
Does that sound about right?
That it's a perfect analogy. I love this. It's a perfect analogy. Exactly what they're doing. People ask me, where did this all start? And I always say it was prior to the Roman Empire, but the Roman Empire was communism. And then if you explain everything that goes on, I mean, there's some people get upset when I talk about it, but the Jesuits are crucial to this. They was banned from England and many countries in Europe for a reason, right? They are not normal Catholics.
Right.
In fact, they despise what they describe as moderate Catholics, right? They will eliminate you the same as what they want to eliminate Protestants. And then when there's lots of different control mechanisms that are in place. I mean, I talk about the Jewish mafia, right? And I'll say it's like everyone knows there's a mafia or mafias in America, but you're not saying that every single American is part of the American mafia. That's not the way mafias work, right? But if good people in America start to stand up against the American mafia, you get a bullet in your head. You're gonna die, right? So the same thing exists all over the country. There's a Russian mafia. It doesn't mean everyone I'm talking about in Russia is part of that mafia, but there are control groups that have got a lot of money and they're controlling what's going on.
Yeah, so what's fascinating is that I do a lot of reading, and so we've never talked before. You and I have never had this conversation before, so I've never had the ability to understand truly what's going on there, although I read a lot, and I had spent a lot of time overseas. I spent a lot of time there. Matter of fact, the week before that shutdown before COVID, I was there. I was in the UK watching a soccer match, right? A football match. And you had a huge storm that came in and it knocked out a couple of games. So we actually drove to a different area to go watch a match. with Man U, and then I flew home, and they shut the border literally 5 days later over COVID. So I've spent a lot of time in that area, and I thought to myself before COVID that it was strange that the people in the UK were sad, because if I go back 15 years, they weren't sad. It's quite different.
Yeah.
And now it's so oppressive that it's nearly impossible to ignore. I haven't met anyone that is awake in the UK that feels that they're not under a sovereign system of slavery and indentured servitude.
I completely agree. But the problem is our voices are shut down. I mean, you mentioned something earlier about the rape and torture gangs.
Yeah.
There is currently an inquiry going on that's been privately funded. It raised £600,000, and a guy called Rupert Lowe, MP, is the person who's in charge. Is in charge of that. He's the one who's helped. He's the only person speaking the truth at the moment here. And just to give you that information was suppressed for at least 50 years, right? We all knew it was going on. As soon as you mentioned it, you was called a racist, right? Even though, and you should call them by their proper term, which is Mohammedan, right? You're using political correctness if you talk about them as Muslim. They're not. They're Mohammedan. And you've just mentioned books. You do a lot of reading. Well, you've got to be very careful what you read here, because if the British and the British universities and people, universities are not educating people anymore, they're indoctrinating them. The schools are not educating people anymore, they're indoctrinating. And there was an old saying, I can't remember who said it, and a quote. If you send your children to a Roman school, don't be surprised when they come back supporting Caesar, right? Well, the slow march through the institutions and Marxists, the first thing they do is they get to the education system. They then infiltrated the Church of England. They then infiltrated every other institution. And that is how the slow march goes forward. And what it's done now recently is speed it up. And it's speeded up when you look at history. There's a reason for that. But whether or not, so America needs to take back America first constitutionally. I agree that you are a constitutional republic. You are not a constitutional democracy, right? You can run America without democracy as long as you are constitutional.
Well, and we've seen them dismantle that across the board, state by state, right? So it's the slow boil, it's the slow, and now they're in the final stages of, can we get them all to capitulate? And what they're finding is Democrats, Republicans, and independents, you saw this large swath of people move to the independent bucket, and now the liberals of the 80s and 90s is now really where most conservatives see themselves, like most. And it's okay to have liberal ideas that allow for us to, I think we moved past racism in the 80s and 90s. Talked to Kyle about this yesterday, and got to a place where we don't care. Like our generation, my generation, your generation, we don't care what color you are. You could be purple with pink polka dots. We don't care. But don't be a shitbag. It really is, right? I mean,
it's about character, not about your color.
Yeah, but they've had us cater to the ridiculous. And they started it in the UK. First of all, hate crimes started as this. They said back when they started these hate crimes for thought crimes, for what you said, they said it was to prevent people from inciting violence, not from speaking their mind. Now that moved, and they said it was going to be a slippery slope. They said it's slippery slope, right? But here's what's happening that I don't think that the human condition that they understand. I think people in the UK are ready to hang people in the streets from corners. I'm just telling you. Like I know enough of these guys that are having conversations They want to massively wipe out these people. And I'm saying that very harshly, not that I want to do it, but you said that the U.S., we have to take it back. There are people like me in the U.S. that are not afraid to die. On the way, by the way, on the way to work today, this morning, I got a text message on which I don't usually check this, but it was on TikTok, and it says, "You won't make it to the office." So there are people that want to silence everything that you're saying. Now they're doing it through technology and just the basic laws you have there, right?
Yep.
And we have it here. But now I need to ask you the question. We were based off a constitution. You're based off of a constitution. You have a constitution in the UK that's being violated every day, right?
An English constitution. There's no such thing as a British constitution. There's no such thing as British law.
So if that is the case, I am not trying to incite anything against the UK. I am not trying to incite anything against the leadership that's there. I'm simply making a simple statement. If that is the case, how close is the UK in all-out civil war? Because it feels like it's as hot there as it is here.
So I have to be careful with what I say.
This is speculation. This is speculation. I wanted to set it up as speculation. Can you feel the heat? Can you feel the heat?
Oh, listen. When I was living in London, I don't live in London at the moment. I live in Devon, right? So I only moved here 6 months ago. The windows on my car were smashed. My car tires were slashed. The wheel nuts on my car were loosened. There were lots of things that they was trying to do to me, right? The problem that you've got is the Fabian Society and the Marxists want to cause a civil war because it is the only way you can create a convention parliament to rewrite the constitution. So we've had 2, I think 3 convention parliaments in England in history.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on. That's only true if they win. That's only true if they win. Because if they lose, I mean, this is fear of loss. And by the way, you have the same problem in the UK we have here, is this fear of the unknown. There's something that changes inside of a person when you back them into a corner, right? They become a rabid dog. Now, Marxist and communism has never survived itself and has killed lots of people. But eventually, it kills the people that are oppressing them. Eventually.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So they try real hard. The devil tries real hard. But let's be honest. It is only a rewrite of the Constitution if you lose. And we had the same problem in the United States during the Revolutionary War, right? If we lost, the consequences were we were not able to enact the Declaration of Independence. We were not able to push the Constitution of the United States, which, by the way, the war was not over until 3 years after the Constitution was written in 1776, right? So we keep saying that we're 1776, we got our freedom. No. It took 3 more years to get our independence from England, right? But nobody ever talks about that. And it wasn't until 1782 that England actually capitulated and said, okay, we recognize you, right? We recognize you.
So let me. This is important that I correct a couple of things. And this, you're not doing this deliberately. You're doing this because of what you've been taught, and especially your system, right? So people need to understand this in America. It wasn't originally the people that left England and we went to America. Even if you talked about the Mayflower, and it was prior to the Mayflower,
right.
Who landed in America. They were English, right? The British didn't exist until 1706, 1707. And the dominions, the English dominions, Virginia and others, Pennsylvania, etc., so four of them states are still technically part of the Commonwealth, right? What people don't understand is they were English dominions, but they were not oppressed and suppressed in the same way. There was a Bacon Rebellion, right, which happened 100 years before 1776. But my point is, within 70 years of the British taking control of Great Britain, that oligarch, that regime, attacked the dominions and in effect was treating them as colonies. And there's a difference between a colony and a dominion in law, right? So people talk about England. The main people that, and again, Thomas Sowell is one of the guys that absolutely spells this out. He said the main group of people that attacked the colonies or the English migrants were Scots. The Scottish regiments were the first ones to attack, right? So when people understand, and I'll give you another example, when we had a major rebellion in 1819 in England, in a place called Peterloo, just outside Manchester, 70,000 people stood up and said, we're going to withdraw tax, we're not giving you no tax, and we want the vote, because we weren't given the vote, right? The British drew their cutlasses and killed 19 of us, charged us, they bayoneted a baby in arms, right? Killed the baby, killed these 19 people, and no one ever mentions it. They're like,
how many people were there, Graham? How many people were there?
70,000.
All right, so let me just tell you what happens real quick to people with bayonets when you have 70,000. Will 19 die? Yes. Will 100 die? Yes. Will 300 die? Probably. Will 500 die? Yes. But you know what happens when 70,000 people march over the people with bayonets? Sooner or later, everyone with a bayonet gets the bayonet.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And it is a saying that I think we live by. Those that live by the sword die by the sword. Those that enslave people sooner or later become the ones that become victims of the slaves themselves. And we have to, I don't know what has drawn me to 5 years ago get involved in all the things I got involved in that led me to the election fraud, but I can tell you this, I was never making it out of this life alive. And I know that a baby lost its life. And I know that 19 people died. And I know that nobody talks about it. But let me tell you something, if those 70,000 people would have marched on the people with bayonets, the people with bayonets would have been stomped into the ground because there wasn't enough of them. But people that are 70,000 people that got on the street, it's really simple. Do you have the Constitution? Do you have the courage to be freed from the chains tied to a fence that is not even in the ground? The strength of our communities is the thing that will save us from the tyranny that we're facing today, both in the UK and in the United States. That's my thought. I could be wrong, but that's my thought.
I could not agree more. The problem with a lot of these people is that, so the people in England, I go around the country giving seminars so we've got one coming up in Cumbria. We've got a number of events coming up, and I teach the Constitution, and I show them the actual law from the law books and say that it's simply just not being enforced by our judges. And there is a reason, again, the Marxists are controlling the separation of power. But what you've just said there, I agree, but they have taken all of our weapons. You can't even have a sword or a large knife over a certain size in this country anymore, right? And just to make sure that the audience are aware, if you've got a large American audience listening to this, they didn't just come along and take our guns, they did it gradually, right? So shall not be infringed is a very important part of the wording, right? Because what they did in 1921 to start to remove our guns, we all had firearms, right? What they did was they banned certain types of ammunition and reloading, right? So certain types of guns they become obsolete. And then they increased it until in the end. And then they blamed it on shootings and mass shootings in this country. It was all nonsense. It was created by them to disarm us.
Right. What's happening in the United States? What's happening in the United States? The same thing is happening in the United States. And they limit our speech by saying you have 3 minutes to speak. which is not enough to articulate an argument. Well, they put people up on stands and they have them talk about nonsense with a doctorate behind them that was trained in a Marxist college or university inside of our schools, right? So, look, you ran away from England or London for a reason, right? The same way you ran away from London is the same way that everyone ran away from every other part of your society. You're running away from schools, you're running away from indoctrination camps, you're running away from big pharma putting things into your body that you don't want. You're running away from the ability for them to want to kill your babies and give you this socialized medicine that frankly that leads to a place where now they've legalized euthanasia and told you that that's an option, we can kill you. Look, everything that you're facing in the UK, if there's anything powerful to come out of this conversation, it's that we are the same. We are brothers and sisters in arms, and frankly, the sooner that we realize that the reason why they took away, I'm in the comments, by the way, if you guys are wondering, I'm the one that's Untamed Nation. As soon as we realize that the reason why they took away your guns, the reason why they took away your knives, man, I'm surprised they didn't take away spoons. They took away bats, they took away, I mean, you're just basically a bunch of school children, 8 years old, that they say basically can't be trusted with anything. You then realize...
That's the only thing I'm allowed to have, but I must have a ball as well, a baseball ball.
So, but my point is, as soon as you realize that they know that the reason why they took it away from you is because they knew sooner or later you'd figure it out that you're a slave. And once you figure out that you're a slave, everything changes. And they knew that by the time you figured that out, they better make sure that they take everything that they can against you so that they can bayonet the 19 people, including killing a baby, and get away with it. I'm going to tell you, though, and I know this is, I want to hear you speak. I want to encourage you that when you're out there talking, that courage is more infectious than fear. And those 70, if you want to see what I learned about January 6th, I learned in January 6th that they were afraid of their lives because the American people showed up in number because of stolen elections. If we have that same fervor and that same ability to be selfless, and you guys are the same thing, if you're selfless, you can eradicate all these people. And I don't mean kill them, I mean run them out so that you can return to a place of sensibility and restore the churches they've closed, God in your community, and that smile on people's faces that was there a long time ago when you had, what was that guy's name? Hugh Grant? When he was doing good movies. Hugh Grant was doing movies.
Well, so let me just add a couple of things to what you said. So for the American audience in this, most people think that they love Nigel Farage. I'm going to tell you now what we call him. As constitutionalists, we call Nigel Farage, and listen carefully to this, Benedict Arnold. So if you know anything about your constitution and your history in America, you will know that Benedict Arnold was the guy who took 10,000 guineas, right, gold guineas from the British, and a 16-year-old woman as his wife to betray George Washington. And he was classed as a traitor. He basically had to escape from America. He'd come back to England, right, or the British. He was then shunned by the community, the business community. He had to leave. He went to Canada. They shunned him as well. He come back. Benedict Arnold and his wife are buried in an unmarked grave in Battersea Cemetery in London, right? And what I'm trying to say is Nigel Farage is Benedict Arnold, and I think that President Trump now knows that he is not a good guy, he's one of the bad guys. And again, let me go back to the census of 2011. What that census said was the British, so it asked what nationality you was, were only 19% of the population, and half of them are foreigners, right? So the English can take back England, the Scots can take back Scotland, the Welsh can take back Wales, and the Northern Irish can take back Northern Ireland. By the way, the Northern Irish are more English than the English. They stand up for the Bill of Rights. They stand up for King Billy that give us the Bill of Rights and give us the Declaration of Rights and the Declaration of Reasons. People don't realise how strong our constitution is. It's not being enforced, but that's a classic of what's actually going on. But let me, I mean, I've been out to America quite a few times. I actually work for an American company. Funny enough, I've been, it was headquartered in Denver, Colorado. And all the people I know, and I know loads of Americans, I go out there quite often, most recently in Texas and in Georgia. When I go
What
to
part of Texas? What part of Texas?
Well, where was it? I did a seminar. There was a Texit, so they wanted to secede the union. Was it not El Paso?
San Antonio, Austin? It would have been Dallas, because Dallas is a bunch of weirdos.
No, it was out somewhere. I'd have to look it up where I went to, but it was fantastic. Georgia, Covington, I went there and absolutely loved it. It was in the gun ranges most of the time. The only place I had a bad experience was in just outside Seattle in Washington, where I walked into what we call a dive bar, was wearing a Trump T-shirt, and the guy behind the bar said, "You want to leave because they won't tolerate you in here." And I couldn't believe that. I was shocked.
Yeah, so that's what you experienced in Washington, is the state-by-state sedition that has happened, stealing elections, indoctrinating people, creating this indoctrination at the education level, and then using the media and the density that they have in the black robes, the rotted judiciary, in order to enforce persecution against Americans.
Yeah, no, again, when I see what's going on in America, I mean, I love America, and your constitution came from England. It's not British, it's English. And even the things that you put in place out there, the electoral college, the people were clever enough to know that the cities would start to expand, and they needed to give a method of making sure everyone was equal, even in the rural areas. So they created the electoral college, which we haven't got in England. There's so many positives to America. I mean, again, it's not America, the United Independent States of America.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest landmass in the world, and it's not the greatest opulence, but it's the greatest nation in the world, and it's been created by the English Constitution and by the ancestors that understood they wanted to live by the word of God and Jesus Christ. That's it. Leave us alone and we'll get on with it, and we'll build the nation. And again, if you look at what the White House did recently, when I say recently, within a month of actually taking office, they sent out a tweet and they said, our national language officially is English. They didn't say British, they said English. And then they sent out another one and they said that the Bill of Rights was written in English. Right? So when I talk to Americans, that's what you've got to understand. There is a difference between the British and in English. Within 70 years of creating the British, right? So in 1707 it was created. Within 70 years they was attacking us in America. And they've never stopped attacking America. But they won't stop unless you take them out. So when I say take them out, I'm not talking about English, Scots, Welsh and Irish. I'm talking about the British oligarch, the British regime, the cabal. They need to be removed. And you're not going to do that with Nigel Farage.
Okay, so I need to, I got more questions for you, because I think that your demographic change has happened. The people that have been there for generations are being basically thrown out of their own land without one shot being fired. Okay? I'm sitting here watching the comments of some of the people that are from the UK, the English. I'm going to call them the English, out of respect for them, right? Because I believe that I'm English, not British. I see that. It's actually somebody's call sign that they're English. Even if the sentiment that is shared here is shared by the generational countrymen, and I'm not talking about white people, because you have Indians that have been there that feel the same way. I have a friend that's an Indian, right? He's from India as far as he's of descent. He feels the same way, right? He feels the same way. His family has been there for 4 generations, okay?
Yeah.
Even if the only thing that you lack is organization. Am I wrong?
Not only, so we've got something called the English Constitution Party, which again, if you go back to the fraud, they won't allow you to be recognised. The Royal Mail even stole the leaflets. The point I'm trying to make to you is we are so oppressed. It's just like the Soviet Union. They won't allow you to organise. So I go around the country and I do seminars and teach people the English Constitution and how we can fight back. But again, even my events have been cancelled at the last minute. Once you set them up and advertise them, all of a sudden they come along and they say, no, we're shutting that down. So they don't allow us to speak. The only place I can generally speak is on Rumble. Even on Twitter, my account is oppressed and suppressed, even the one I've got now. I should be at 50, 100,000 followers on there. But as soon as you get to a stage, they'll take you out. And by the way, the censorship on Twitter or X or whatever is still coming out of London's office, Twitter office. They will not allow anyone to speak about the English.
Okay, so by the way, there's a comment that was made is that we have a problem with organization in the U.S. too. And so how we resolved it, and I'm going to give you some ideas here because I really want the British to hear what the English are thinking for a reason. I think you have an opportunity here because there's people that are listening that I just got a text message from a friend of mine who's in the UK that found this on X and said, Joe, Graham's a great guy. Like I went to a seminar with him. So the thing that we decided that we were going to do is that we understand that Rome wasn't built in a day. You guys have been going through this for 3, 4, 5 decades, right? This is a slow boil, right? We built a thing called the Brotherhood. And the Brotherhood, we have these little rings. I don't know if you can you pop in on that ring? Pop in on that ring if you can, guys. Can you or no? All right. So one of the things about the English is that there are men and women of faith, right? A lot of Catholics, right? And so we decided that we were going to build a brotherhood. See if I can get it to move it over for you. And so we have these rings, right? Now you'd say, Joe, why have a ring? Okay, go ahead and put it back down. Why have a ring? You have got to figure out how to build a brotherhood where I am my brother's keeper means something. That's biblical, by the way. That says we must put on the full armor of God. And when people decide that they're not as interested in the next breath or in surviving it, because you weren't going to survive it anyway, something happens. And I know that this is the case because I have people every day that I'm talking to about why I wear this ring. Now we're starting to make sure that men are men. And by the way, this is not anything against women, but you've got to get men. You got to get able-aged men. Like women can support it. Man, if you have some that want to fight, great. But putting a woman inside of I'm not built that way. I'm still built where chivalry is not dead. And I want to be able to protect my wife. I want to be able to protect my daughters, your daughters, our wives, our mothers. I think it's sacred ground that we should be on when it comes to women, right? This whole feminist deal, you throw it out the window as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't mean that I think they're stupid. I just think that a woman should be revered. And I don't think we've done that, which is why you got a bunch of gay people running around in office, right? But if you can get to a place where you have a brotherhood, and then the rules of engagement for that brotherhood are really simple. We stand together, we meet together, we break bread together, and when something happens, we get in it together, That starts to grow. Like we started with 30, and then we get 40, and then we're adding more people to it. Now we're having a meeting this week to go through what that means. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what I know for a fact. If you go back to the Black Robe Regiment, you talk about what happened in the William Wilberforce, right? I mean, he was a force of nature, one man, right? That ended North Atlantic slave trade in England.
Let me just say to you, that again, that is British propaganda.
That's not true.
Who actually stopped the slave trade was a guy called Granville Sharp, who was white working class from County Durham. He's never spoken about, and he was the person who brought the cases to free the slaves. Because basically what the English said was, you cannot be a slave in England, right? It is against God's will. They must be released.
Yeah.
And then from America, some of the blacks that escaped come to England, and we looked after them. But just let me make sure. It took Wilberforce 30 consecutive years of putting the Abolition Act through, and every time he did it, 20 consecutive years. And every time he did it, the British Parliament said no and rejected it. But it had already been banned under common law. And there was a judgment, it was Somerset versus Stewart, 1772, right? So all I'm saying, these people have created, I just want to, you talk about the ring. Our members, the English Constitution Society, I'm not sure if you can see that clearly on the screen or not. But our members have this. Let me see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, I see it.
Right? That's the original flag of England, not the George Cross.
Oh.
And that's a Whithen, and that's the English Constitution Party and Society. And on the reverse of that are several of our constitutional acts of Parliament, including, by the way,
Magna Carta. I saw that at the top. Yeah, number one, Magna Carta.
Pete, let me just ask you, this would be a fascinating question for you, right, and your audience. How many of you know that a part of England, 3 acres of England, is an enclave of the United States of America? And when I say enclave, it was given to the United States people by Her Majesty the Queen and Parliament. And that enclave is 100% covered by the American Constitution.
Are you serious?
Absolutely serious. And that's what causes a problem for the Marxists, right? 3 acres of Runnymede was given to the American people by Her Majesty the Queen and the British Parliament. It's called fee simple absolute. We have got complete and utter sovereignty of that land. I have been on that land. It's where the JFK Memorial is, where I have said prayers for President Trump. If you go to my website, or not my website, sorry, if you go to Rumble, go to the very first video on Rumble on the Full English show, and you will see us at Runnymede, where the Magna Carta was sealed. That site has been given, the 3 acres, been given to the American people. It's known as an enclave in law. Russia has an enclave, for example, in the European Union, which of course is a massive problem for the European Union. But when we was there, and I was talking to the very large crowd of 300 people that had come along, we said a prayer for President Trump, for the people of the United States of America, and just to make sure everyone's clear on this, the Kennedys, 3 armed police, British armed police come up there, 3 armed police. Bearing in mind, technically, we've got an unarmed police force. That is not correct, by the way. They come up there, and one of the guys with us was ex-Special Forces, and walked up to them. In fact, he was SAS, and he walked up to them and said, "Why are you here? Why have you got firearms when we are praying?" And they said, "We've just come up to take a look." So he said to them, "Leave. This area is covered by the United States Constitution, and we have constitutional rights to be here and say what we need to say. Now leave. And they left because they knew that that was covered by the American Constitution, and they left, right? So people in America need to understand there is an enclave in England running me just outside Windsor Castle, right, that is owned completely by the people of the United States of America.
So can I come there and get 3 acres?
Well, you wouldn't get the 3 acres, but you used to go on there. I'll give you an example of what I did constitutionally.
Well, I need to ask you a question before I lose this question, because it came from, I'm English, not British. It said to ask you, who's complicit in the regionalization of England? What happened when you void the Acts of Union 1707? What is the 134 Torture Act?
Oh, right. So there's a number of parts to that. So if you void the Acts of Union, you take England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland in effect. Actually, Scotland, Wales, and England back to being a brotherhood of nations and not controlled by a British Parliament. So you go back to an English Parliament. You would then go back to counties. What people don't know is that the United States of America was built on an exact model of England, right? So the United Independent States, our shires and counties were independent, right? To a large degree. They're still covered by the Constitution, but you could do what you wanted as long as you didn't cross the line with the Constitution. It's the same as America. The next question was, I think, who can be made responsible, I believe, or who were these people? The answer is the British, the European Union. They was never allowed to create what's known as the European Union and take us into it, because it's against the supremacy clause of the English Bill of Rights. We all know this, and when I go around and talk to people, I show people the supremacy clause, and we're not allowed to have other people governing us anyway, right? But the next part of that was about the rape and torture gang. They're not grooming gangs, that's nonsense. They're rape and torture gangs, mainly carried out by Mohammedans. And the major point is that if the state has acquiesced, omitted, acted, or consented in any way to white English girls being raped all over the country in the last 50 years, and you can show evidence of that, they can be prosecuted by the Criminal Justice Act 1988, Section 134, torture. They are the 4 key elements to it, and on indictment and then being found guilty by a jury, it is a mandatory all-life sentence. Because that was part of the UNCAT, which is the United Nations Convention Against Torture, universal jurisdiction was agreed between British and, for example, America, and if the British do not prosecute it, those prosecutions can be brought in, for example, Texas, with agreement with the Attorney General, United States Attorney General, and the Texas Governor. Them cases can be brought in Texas. They can be found guilty by a Texas jury once they've been shown the evidence. And if the British do not extradite them people and send them out to America, you can send in a team and extract them, and they will serve their sentence in America. And by the way, for any Americans out there thinking to themselves, we don't want to pay for your criminals, I agree. What you would then do is get the Crown to pay for that imprisonment.
Okay, so that they have the ability to torture you.
Yeah.
Is basically, and they have the right to torture you.
No, they have no right to torture us. The problem is...
But they've created statutes that allow them to justify the torture of the people in their community.
So what they've done in particularly in England, and it is mainly English white working class that have been raped all over the country. I mean, one again, it come out in the inquiry today. One 11-year-old girl was raped by over 600 men. And by the way, this was her father telling the story, right, at the inquiry. And the British authorities, the police, the social services, and all of the people involved on behalf of the British state and regime were the people that covered it all up, right? So those people will never allow themselves to be prosecuted.
Right.
So there is an external mechanism known as universal jurisdiction that the British signed up to, where we could prosecute them people in the United States of America. That's what I'm saying. But again, if people think that we haven't stood up in the past, I mean, I've been on marches when I was 16 years old. The British are not listening to us.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I'm just going to give you my thoughts based on being away. One, there's a lot of people like you that are saying these things that I've been following for years. There's also other people like Katie Hopkins that, you know, talk about semantics, and we'll talk about these issues and come to the United States and speak about them. And she'll do it in pubs and places around England as well. She's been ostracized. But there isn't a lot of cohesion amongst leadership in your thought pattern, like what you think about, that I see. And I say that because my friend just said that he came to visit you and they went to visit someone else, and there's not a whole lot of times that people are together and you're having these thoughtful conversations collectively, which shows unity. And I think one of the biggest issues that, and again, I'm going to steal the text that I just got from Arthur, so I'm sorry, Arthur, I'm going to quote you here. He said that the unity amongst the people is because there's no unity amongst the leadership. So there's no ability for them to have cohesion around an idea or a principle that gets passed, maybe doing a protest, that allows for them to protect each other, because there are no rules for people to know how to act or interact or to stand up for each other, right? So everyone's very independent in England, right? It's very independent.
It's like herding cats.
Yeah, so I'm, you know, the psychological part of being strong and being smart, and the English are also very smart people. You're keen on things going on around you. You can see it. You might not say anything about it because, frankly, if you say something, you're liable to get thrown in jail for it, right? And they prove it over and over again. But in order to get to a place where you have cohesion, you have to have cohesion in leadership, right? So you have to have people that are willing to stand together. So, and Arthur just said, he said, listen, I'm stealing your text, Art, so I want to have you on so we can maybe have a conversation. He says that the people don't really know where to go. They know what the law is, they know what needs to be done, but there isn't a lot of courage that is exuding that say, okay, here's our rules of engagement.
Yeah.
And you have many soldiers that got out of service, that left service, that are very disenfranchised right now, right?
So you've just mentioned Katie Hopkins, right? Mm-hmm. She's alien to me. She regards herself as British. These people have been so badly indoctrinated, and a lot of the veterans now, and I know many of them, for certain reasons, are being prosecuted by the British for operating in Northern Ireland, Iraq, and Afghanistan, right? And some of them are special forces. They're being prosecuted by the British, and yet they still say, well, the ones I talk to don't, but they still say they're British. And I've said, listen, you need to snap out of this indoctrination. It's like, just to let me finish this part of what I was trying to explain about Stalin. People don't realise that the Soviet Union was disbanded by a stroke of a pen in 1991. Russia went back to being Russia. It never died. The spirit of the people are rising again, not in a bad way, in a positive way, and in Christ. That is what they're doing. They're showing the world that they still are Christians, and They are a nation, a natural group of people together, a tribe, right? What I'm trying to say to you is 20% of the old Soviet Union, through indoctrination of their mind, still refer to themselves as Soviets.
Right.
Because of the indoctrination of the mind. It is completely evil, right? And that's what they've done to these people in England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. But when I speak to people and walk up and say, what nationality are you, British or English? The majority of people, especially outside of London, say, I'm English.
Right.
When we go back to that 2011 census, British were a minority, and half of them are foreigners. And when I talk about foreigners, you mentioned someone you know who's an Indian who's been here for 4 generations, right? The English put a clause together in something called the Acts of Settlement 1701. And apart from saying that English law is our birthright, it also stated that you could not have any position of authority. You could not be a member of parliament. You couldn't be in the House of Lords. You couldn't be a judge. You couldn't be a police constable. You could have no position of authority unless both your parents were English. Parents plural, right? It was a protection mechanism that was put in place not from race, but because the Dutch started to take advantage of the situation where they was invited here, by the way. The Dutch put this in position, and then they was putting people in positions in Parliament and robbing us and then sending the money out of the country. Who was it that removed that protection? Right, and if you go and look at our Parliament, it's full of foreigners. Right, why is it? Because the British Nationality Act of 1948, Schedule 4, removed that protection. This has been a steady process and plan to destroy England. So getting back to what that, I think it's Archanaut who's out there, right? Listen, it is difficult. We have got an organisation. Let's say there's 1,000 of us at the moment, right? So we've got membership of the English Constitution Society and the English Constitution Party. There's over 1,000 that are registered. There's more than that, right? My point is we're all volunteers. You can't, the people with money are not funding us. It's almost, even though we are a Christian group, we are English, right? I've got no issue with the Scots. In fact, most people who know the history know that Scotland has always fought against the Union, the political Union. There's, by the way, the UK is not a country, it's a unitary state. Even the law books tell you that, right? But they've been indoctrinated to believe that the UK is a country.
Right.
And Britain is an island. It's a bit like Haiti and Dominion Republic.
Yeah, but I mean, but Graham, hold on a second. Let me just look. In 5 years of getting my ass kicked in politics in the United States, I got a PhD in basically getting smacked around by everybody, left, right. Everyone hates me. 7,000 articles they wrote about me. They try to do harm to me. I have to carry a gun everywhere I go. You guys can't have them, but I certainly can, and I do carry one everywhere I go, right? And I got another special one just in case, right? So I have to carry a weapon everywhere I go because people like me. They want to kiss me with whatever they're carrying. So here's what I've learned. I've learned that the most unlikely relationships, the most unlikely unions, like Katie Hopkins, I'm going to reach out to her tonight. I'm going to say, you need to watch this podcast, right? These are the podcasts I live for, by the way. This has been awesome for me, right? But I'm going to tell her, you need to get with Graham, and you guys need to figure it out, right? The founding fathers in the United States hated each other. Matter of fact, they loathed each other so much that sitting in the same room became a chore. And if you want to talk about Thomas Jefferson and the fights and William Henry, people that nobody talks about, right? They despised each other. You want to know why? Because they were strong.
Yeah.
They died broke and destitute. They were ostracized in the very country that they created.
Yep.
100%. Because they couldn't get along. Right? And it led to the Civil War. Because they built factions in different states and then they couldn't get along because they all had a different vision of what the outcome was. I'm telling you right now, like I am a man that is deeply entrenched in my faith. I'm a very flawed man, but I have spent the last 17 years of my life serving, right? And this is no different. If you can stand together with people like Katie Hopkins and have conversations, humbly have conversations, you will solve England's problems. Right?
Joe, let me just make sure I express this to your audience as well. When I was 24 years old, I died. I was in a coma and I died. I crossed over to the other side and I spoke to my mother who died a year before. The person I spoke to, who I take and regard as God, listened to people praying. I wasn't religious. And he let me come back. And I believe that the reason they let me come back was to take England back because it is God's country.
Right.
It doesn't belong to the Marxists or the communists. It belongs to God's people. And once we take control, but it's getting these people to say, listen, I mean, I'm not, Joe, I get what you're saying. But people need to understand this. Look at Nigel Farage, right? I've just described him as Benedict Arnold, right? He's just took £20 million off of the guy with dual nationality from Thailand. How can we compete with that? How can we compete with it? 20 million is just taken off the guy who doesn't even live here.
Yeah, so you're not trying. So, I mean, look, I'm a firm believer that I never look at the obstacle, I look at the problem, right? And I never work the problem through the symptom. And right now you have a hell of a lot of symptoms that are going on. This is one of the reasons why over 5 years I've been able to be vindicated just happened. And I'm gonna sue the shit out of everybody, right? It's been a tough 5 years. And I'm telling you right now that being in this fight and the people that are listening to this podcast that are over in England, I want them to be so engulfed, so swallowed up by the idea, not the idea of hope, but the idea of the path. Like you can see the light, you run towards it. People are going to throw all sorts of chairs and shit and fires and tragedy. Everything's going to be thrown at you, right? But you're saying that I'm going to keep my eye fixed on that goal. That's my mission. I'm going for it. We're going to go there. It doesn't matter what it takes. That is the spirit of England. That's the spirit that you could take back 400, 500 years ago, right? When you fought off the Romans, when you fought off the Ottoman Empire, when you were a part of, I mean, I could literally tell you right now, the spirit of England, every one of my friends, every time I get into a cab when I was over there, every time I engaged with people there, it was always the same thing. And that we need to take back our nation. So if people are telling that to me, I know for a fact you got the density. You have enough people to take out these Marxists, take out these people, and I don't mean violently, I mean you basically evict them, right? And take back what was rightfully yours. It was never theirs to take. So that's, I guess, the thing that I want to leave with you.
Yeah, no, 100. Listen, Joe, let me tell you something. If something serious happened in the US tomorrow, bearing in mind my age, I would volunteer to protect your country and come in there and fight for America. All we need from America, I mean, we even sent a letter, you've probably heard of this, but I think it's around the July time, every year. They have what's known as a declaration of the captured nation. We sent our paperwork to America and said, England is a captured nation. We need help, right? And that's what I'm saying. Your administration now, hopefully, will start looking at England and understand that we are the beating heart of America. They're attacking us because they want to destroy America.
Yeah. So
I agree with everything that you're saying.
So I want to read some of the comments of the people that are in the comments. Some are from different places. The English were never asked for multiculturalism, which means somebody stole your nation from you. They stole your sovereignty. No taxation without representation. English, indigenous, not represented, but pay the most taxes. I agree with that in a socialist environment. Graham is too hot for Hopkins. A little bit of humor over there from Noble Stone. Let me see here, get some more comments here. Hopkins is a Tommy Robinson, who is a friend of Israel. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I just want to give it to you. Farage is a scumbag. I think we've got that one down. Changed my picture. Tel Aviv Steve. I don't know what you're referring to, but I think it's funny. Nigella Farage. The English are rising. Tracy said the English are rising. Yes, a light is needed for sure. I think that you're headed towards a light. And then Cockney Girl says the path to voiding the acts of union and reclaim our sovereignty, which I think. And then Tracy says the line is awakening. And Trump says no one talks about England anymore. It's very true. Q Garden says that. And Change My Picture said the Constitution is the solution. Jingle Blue says we are at war. And Tracy just said, or Merlin said, where we go one, we go all. I think that's the spirit of it, right? Is that we have to embrace that.
I agree entirely. And again, we are building this movement. There's one MP who's leaning towards us, which is Rupert Lowe, but he still regards himself as British. The problem with these people that have been indoctrinated by universities, and some of them have blatantly say to you, we haven't got a constitution, and I'll just laugh. I'll show them the constitution in writing, and they still don't get it. It is hard work, but I do get what you're saying. All I can tell the American audience and the English audience watching this is I will never surrender. I will never, ever surrender my rights as an Englishman or my country as an Englishman. I may have moved out of London through necessity, but I will carry on the fight where we are. And where I am is in Devon, the most important county because of the Glorious Revolution, which is where our Bill of Rights came from.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this kind of ends up, and I'd love to stay connected with you, just to see how I can help. And you come to the United States often or no?
Whenever I can. I went to the event at Texas in Texas, and then where was that fault where the FBI killed all them people? There was a big event, and they shot that big group of people and bombed it.
Oh, I know where you were. You were at oh my gosh, Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was close to there, but it was a massive event. It was a big conference. There was about 2,000.
It's what's her name? There's a couple that does houses down there too. It's the Tale of Two Halves. It's a city that's deeply divided. Man, it'll come to me. Someone will say something about it. The Gaines, right? Chip Gaines, the home remodeling. Somebody give me the answer. Waco.
Yeah,
you were in Waco. You were in Waco, Texas.
Waco, Texas. That's exactly where it was. Yeah.
All right, who got that first? Archer's not got it first. Thank you. Thanks for saving me.
Georgia. I've been out of Washington, a few places. With some really great stuff I did out there. And again, I worked for an American company without a degree as an engineer. I was interviewed on a four panel by a group of people, and they was asking me questions. They made me sweat for about 4 hours. And when they took me on, and that company was called Level 3 Communications in Denver, Colorado, and they built a global network with $14 billion in 18 months. That's what you can do when you put your mind and you get the right people
Yes.
behind the company.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, how can people follow you now? I just followed you on X, and I followed
English
you
on X, and then the full English show. So what we're trying to do now is promote and push our channel on Rumble. We're also on YouTube, but they'll take me down again.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I'm going to tell you what to do. Number one, and I'll tell everyone on here, you need to do this. You need to make sure that you're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. Make sure you're doing that, right? Yeah, make sure you're on that. Matter of fact, we'll help you. Damon will reach out to you. Damon, make sure you get in touch with him. Put them on pill.net. Get him a channel set up there. Get him on all the disparate environments, and then make sure he has the ability to go there, right? Got it, Damon? Okay, Damon's going to reach out to you and get you on all the disparate channels that are basically the underground channels here, and you'll get tens of thousands of more views per episode that you do on those environments as well. And people, they just share it everywhere. It's like a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so where else can some people I'm sorry I interrupt you. Where else can they follow you currently? On Rumble.
On Rumble, the Full English Show, it's called. And again, I'm live every night at 3 p.m. Eastern time for the American audience, which is 8 p.m. UK time.
All right. Well, I'll be watching you. And just so you know...
Tommy Robinson.
I'm sorry?
You was going to ask me a question about Tommy Robinson. He's an interesting character.
Yeah, no, somebody said that in the comments. Something about Tommy Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah, and they said that you don't have to, that he would love to get back to you, but you're too busy giving time to England and everyone else. He deserves a trip to the States again soon. So, and I said, maybe I'll just come to England.
Either one. I mean, one person we have been pushing to try and get a podcast with is Tucker Carlson. But the reason is because he will sit there and he's like you. He gets it, right, and he understands that there is a problem. He said on a number of occasions, he's talked about Christian nationalism. He's also talked about the Protestants being oppressed and suppressed yet again. And again,
I will put you in touch with Tucker Carlson. How's that?
That'd be perfect.
I'll make that happen. I will literally send him a text message today. So
yeah, no, we think he's fantastic.
He is fantastic. He's not only fantastic. He's on a whole new level. Like, he's just a good man. And you know that when the darling of the news industry that always spoke truth starts speaking truth outside of the confines of the what we call the guardrails, that's when you know you have someone that frankly wants his legacy to be about truth, no matter what the consequences are. That's Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I completely agree, and I can tell they are genuine people. They are genuine Christians. Tucker Carlson is, yourself, Tommy, who, and I'm not talking about Tommy Robinson, that put us in touch. These are all lovely people. We are like cousins. And we need to start acting to make sure we support each other. Like I said, I would go to America and defend America tomorrow. I don't want American boots on the ground because I don't want any American lives lost to the British. You've already been through that once. All I want is the administration to say, I'll tell you what, give them their guns back, or we put a 200% tariff on the British, and we will solve our own problem.
I want to say something because I did write this inside the chat on Rumble. I can't do all the chats, but I did say that it's been an awesome show. It's been great having you on. This is probably, I have my favorites. This is probably my favorite. But I said some things that that I think is important, and what I want everybody to know, and that is, but God. It is super important that you remember those two words, but God. In the U.S. for the last 5 years, we've been fighting the same thing you're fighting there. We have these 4 things that we tell people they must do, and it's biblical: pray, stand, speak, and act. And you know, I usher it back to Judges 7, which is the Gideon 300. You don't need a lot. You just need them to be courageous. You need people to want to stand for what is right, regardless of the consequences. And so we tell people to pray, to stand, to speak, and to act, and then always come back to prayer so that you never become the very thing that you're fighting against. Because in that void, it's very easy to get back to a place of vengeance or anger.
I agree. And that's where the word forgive. But forgive does not mean no retribution or no accountability. It means once that accountability has taken place, whatever the result of that accountability, you accept it, you forgive, and you move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Graham, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. God bless you, and I look forward to having you on again.
God bless you. Thank you, and it will be a pleasure to be back on.
Thank you. Take care. You know, this has probably been my favorite show. I say that, and I'm thinking about all the other shows that I had, and it gave me an opportunity. I keep telling people I'm a walking encyclopedia of worthless information. And a couple of days ago, I was talking about silver markets and everything else because I read about that. And but understanding the history of England has always been kind of a soft spot, because I think history is always written by the victors, and we never really get to hear from those people that really lived that life, right? So it was a completely amazing show. It was a blessing to have all of you on. Normally I'd go into a bunch of other things, and I think I have some stuff that I really should cover, but I want to. We have something that I need to address. I had friends that are in from Australia, and they're a friend of a friend. And we were at the hockey game last night where the Red Wings beat the Avalanche. I was pretty upset about that. And my friend Ryan Schuling, who has a show on iHeart, a pretty popular show on the radio, and he interviewed me, and I sent him some tickets, and he came there in his Red Wings thing, which was really disturbing for me. Just kidding, Ryan. It was okay. Although, if you would have lost, it would have been nice to see you walk out in the walk of shame. But I talked to them about what's happening in Australia, and it's the same story. Now, most people most people don't have the history that I have. In other words, you haven't been to 65 nations. I've been to 65. You haven't been down to the South American countries and been able to sit with leaders, kings, president, prime ministers, and people that are leaders in their own right, in their own country, in their own sovereign environment. And I've had that ability. I've had the things that I've been able to do. And when we talked to Graham, I had an understanding of where Graham was coming from, because I remember back with the National Prayer Breakfast, you have Tony Blair, and this is back in 2007 and 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. And what was fascinating about those conversations and the conversations I have with other people is that if I look back now, I could actually see what was happening in our country. Like, I could see it. Like, I could see that we were setting the stage for some very nefarious people to do really bad things. I remember the conversations as if it was yesterday, which is weird because I didn't give it a second thought about those conversations. But now, as we see what's happening in the UK and we see what's happening in Scotland, and if you haven't been paying attention to Conor McGregor, he's on fire. He's on fire to bring a new national voice back to the people of his nation, right? Nation state, part of this UK, this group of nations. And it's ready, it's ripe. in the United States, we're ready and we're ripe, and we recognize the criminals and we recognize the institutional rot. But when I talked to my friend last night from Australia, everyone recognized it. They recognized that the UK ran the same game of we're taking away your guns for your own good, keep you safe. But it didn't keep them safe. What it did is it took them from 7,000 rapes to over 70,000 rapes. And in the middle of that, you weren't allowed to face your accuser. Same thing happened in Australia. Same thing happened with the COVID vaccine in Australia, where they tried to do forced vaccinations. And then they saw this massive wave of people rising up and said, oh, maybe it's not time. But see, the damage has already been done. The people in England are no happier, the English are no happier than we are in the United States if you can see it. And most people in the United States don't want to see it, they just want to live. They want to do that thing that Daniel Pearl did, right? And that is, I just want one more breath, I'll say whatever you want me to say. I just want one more TV commercial. I just want one more of this. I just want to have all my conveniences. But it's just not enough anymore. And so, you know, I equate what's happening in the UK with what we're doing in the United States. We're making huge sacrifices. And I'll bring it back to the fight that President Trump is in right now inside of Washington. The government is at war with itself. And it's the haves fighting the have-nots inside of its own rankings while having to recognize that the haves are the haves. So it's eating itself. And everywhere you look, whether you look at the Epstein files, I got more of the Epstein files related to people who say they're on our side. The Steve Bannon's having conversations with the Jeffrey Epsteins. I personally am disgusted by some of the things I saw he did. He's not talking about it. He's not talking about it. I don't see any connection to President Trump at all. None. And you could say, well, there's stuff in there for it. No, there's not. There's things that people said that were found to be uncredible that created a idea, and we can't even authenticate any of that. Well, there's things we can authenticate, messages we can authenticate. And they lead us back to the same people that want to lead us and want to tell us that they're fighting for us while they stand in the way of progress and become obstructionists, like Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche that works underneath Pam Bondi. Todd Blanche that fired Ed Martin. Well, I have an article I want to read to you really quick as I kind of make this kind of switch over into this specifically. I said before we brought on Graham, that Ed Martin was one of the truly good guys. He's one of the guys that believed in doing the right thing. He's a very big man of faith, always has been. I could say the same thing about the director Bailey that went into the FBI, another really good man who left the position in order to come into the FBI to clean it up. But put this article up. Ed Martin was fired. Todd Blanche did not notify the White House he removed Ed Martin from weaponization group, even though Trump personally hired Martin for the job. This is criminal. Monday, the Gateway pundit Christina Leala reported the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche fired Ed Martin as chief of the Justice Department's weaponization working group. This was first reported by investigative reporter Paul Sperry. Last May, President Trump tapped Ed Martin to be the U.S. pardon attorney after Rhino's Senator Thorne Tillis derailed his nomination for D.C. U.S. attorney. He was also personally named by Trump to serve in the Justice Department's director of the weaponization working group. Then on Monday, it was reported that Ed Martin was removed from his role as chief of weaponization at the DOJ. A DOJ spokesperson said Ed Martin is still at the department as the pardon attorney. But there is more to the story. On Tuesday, Paul Sperry tweeted a shocking development that Todd Blanche did not tell the Trump White House that he had removed Ed Martin from the weaponization group. That was after President Trump personally hired Ed Martin for the committee. Go ahead and take it down. That was written by Jim Hoff, by the way. Another individual that was vindicated by Coomer and the other things that came out by these whistleblowers. Coomer, stolen elections in different countries. I mean, what we're dealing with right now is nothing short of international treason by a group of people that want to destroy everything that we represent and have us fight each other tooth and nail. Well, I think we've identified who they are now. We know who they are. And I think it's high time that not just in Australia or the UK or any of these countries, that we come together and we start to realize that we have to have effective leadership that is willing to rid ourselves of systems that they put in front of us in order to enslave us and turn us into plebes, serfs, slaves. It's coming. I truly believe it is coming. I'm going to bring it back to Colorado. And for those of you that are joining us from the UK, I just want to say again, thank you. Daddy Dragon, I didn't know you were as Daddy Dragon, but some of the people that have followed me for years know who you are. They've talked on Facebook and other places like, aren't you Daddy Dragon? So just to let you know that you haven't lost your following. We just need to reconnect you with them, and we'll work really hard to help you do that as well. Let's, if we can, let's get to Colorado for a minute, can we? Or should we go to, are we in, which one are we in here? Let's get to the part where I need to, oops, wrong one. Okay. So last night, you've heard me talk about Tina Peters quite a bit, and we have some real problems here in Colorado. And part of it you just heard about. You heard about it, the same thing happening in England, and the fact that we've lost our sovereignty as a populace, as a group, as a community, able to basically, we're running away from things. A vast majority of our parents are running away from schools, and I'm not talking about universities, they're running away from elementary schools. So deathly afraid of the grooming, indoctrination, the sexualization of their children, that they're just opting out. Nearly 20% of parents don't want to put their kids into public schools. Again, running them away from, we're running away from the problem rather than running towards it and saying, you will not do that. Free and fair elections, school indoctrination, corrupt local media, corrupt judges, fighting against releasing offenders back onto the street. Second Amendment rights, keeping boys out of girls' locker rooms. Red flag laws that they want to just create more and more punitiveness on our communities. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, all in the same boat. And you're seeing them fight and say, look, that doesn't represent us. We're not Democrats. We're not those Democrats. Everything that you face around the nation is a capturing that is happening right here in Colorado, only times 10. And these people have zero ability to control themselves because they have been selected, not elected. They are demons that are trying to take everything fundamental from us in Colorado. So let's start with this guy, Kyle Clark, soon to be sued by me. I might even actually take his name. I might make that a thing. Okay, I might let you off for a little bit, but you have to change your name. So to Dickie McSwirly. I don't know how I came up with that name, but Dickie McSwirly sounds really good for Kyle Clark. He was on last night talking about President Trump and Tina. Let's take a listen.
President Trump today directly linked his retaliation against Colorado to his political ally Tina Peters being in prison here for leading a breach of election system security. And Trump's latest comments about her case call into question whether the president even knows what Peters did to land her in prison and unleash his retribution on Colorado.
She was in charge of a voting area, and she saw boxes of votes come in. So she went over to check it, and they put her in jail for voter manipulation, and she's still in jail. And they better let her out fast. And they're suffering a big price, Colorado. They have this woman in jail who's 71 years old, and probably has cancer. She's sick. And they put her in because she challenged somebody that was dumping ballots into a box, okay? And they didn't put them in jail.
What President Trump said there is almost entirely, like word for word, false. Have no idea where he is getting this story about Tina Peters challenging someone dumping ballots into a box. We have covered Peters for 5 years and have never heard anyone claim that. What Peters did is well established. Even her own legal team admits it. They just say that it was justified. Peters snuck a hacker around security protocols using another person's ID so that hacker could make a copy of election systems. She's not in jail for voter manipulation like President Trump said, whatever that means. She's in jail on 4 felonies and 3 misdemeanors for her role in that election systems breach, which did not impact any actual votes. Trump also claims that Peters probably has cancer. She had cancer years ago. Recently, she had a cough, which her lawyer says has improved. All of this to say, it is not clear if President Trump knows what Tina Peters did to land in prison, leading to his campaign of retaliation against Colorado, where he's withheld disaster funding, tried to freeze federal spending here, vetoed a clean drinking water project, relocated a military command, and is closing a major science lab.
Okay, so this liar is lying. So let me just tell you, President Trump got a bunch of things wrong. So did he. Number one, Tina was not in jail for manipulating or breaching a system. None of her charges are related to that. They charged her with basically walking down the street. None of the charges were related to anything having to do with what she did in uncovering the election fraud. So Kyle Clark, he may have got it wrong, but you're just a liar because you said right up front, we've been talking about Tina Peters for 5 years. And here's another part. Conan Hayes is not a hacker. He's not a hacker at all. He's a computer programmer and a surfer who worked for the CIA. But you wouldn't say that either because you're nothing but a little Fed snitch. You're a piece of garbage. You're not a journalist. You're an Antifa freak that has done everything you can to, frankly, deceive and trick the people of Colorado. Nothing that you say is accurate. Nothing that you say is real. Nothing that you say is in any way indicative of what's really happening or has happened in Colorado. I don't even think you know what the truth is. You're a liar that has stood up for radical leftists that have destroyed everything that is good about this country. And I pray to God that when they come in to take over 9 News, that they throw you out on your head. You're a disease, and you're a part of the other disease that seems to have just taken over everything we have in the state of Colorado. You're a part of the swamp. You're a part of the cabal that stole the voice of people of Colorado and installed selected leadership at every level, and frankly, on the Democrat side and the Republican side. You're garbage. So I'll start with you. I'll start with you because frankly, man, you're like number 1 on the list. And since lawyers are calling me saying, Joe, I will represent you. I will represent you, and I've already made a list of all the people that we need to sue. You're at the top of the list, Kyle Clark. I pray I get to sit across the table with you in front of a jury and just put it all out there. Because you're a journalist, right? You had all the information, right? Yet you hid that information on Eric Coomer. And you purposely lied in order to create a false front and to defame me over the last 5 years. You will pay for it. And 9 News, so will you. And Matt Doloff, you will pay for it too. Sooner or later, you're all going to pay for what you've done that is not a victimless crime to the people of Colorado and, frankly, the people that you've hurt, killed as a result of your just evil behavior. So that's all I have for you. And I want to talk about the other part, the water part, the water project that brought clean water. That's a lie, too. So let me tell you about this vetoing HR 131 in this water project. Let's put it out there for Kyle Antifa Clark, the liar that basically talks about President Trump doing all these things to Colorado. No, Colorado is basically the bottom part of the iceberg that the Titanic hit. The Arkansas Valley conduit it's an important project for water. Okay, this is from Adam Dorito. But it was but HR 131 was the wrong vehicle to get it done. The bill would have locked taxpayers into an open-ended, over-budgeted federal commitment with weak accountability, shifting costs onto working families while rewarding years of mismanagement and delays. Supporting rural water access does not mean writing a blank check. It means demanding transparency, enforceable timelines, and responsible funding. Good intentions do not excuse bad governance. When Washington rushed massive infrastructure bills without guardrails, costs explode and communities are left waiting anyways. Vetoing HR 131 was not about denying water. It was about forcing a better solution that actually delivers water without bankrupting future generations. Rural Colorado deserves clean water, drinking water. They also deserve leaders who protect taxpayers and demand results. Leadership is saying no when a bill is flawed and when the issue is, even when the issue is not popular. We can do both, provide water and protect accountability. The bigger issue that I think in this, that I think we need to pay attention to, is that this water project did not actually provide safe water. And then let's do this. This is the other part. You know, I'm not going to talk about that bill. Yeah. I don't even know if I want to piss everybody off in the state of Colorado. Maybe, yeah, I will. So the Adams County GOP put up something that talks about the radical anti-gun agenda that they have, that nobody talked about, right? It wasn't even on the agenda. In a move that feels more like targeted harassment campaign than a safety initiative, Democrats has pushed Senate Bill 26004 through its first committee. The extreme expansion of the red flag laws provide once again that if you own a gun in Colorado, the radical majority wants you to feel like a criminal in your own community. By weaponizing institutional petitioners, they are turning schools and hospitals into state-sanctioned informants, essentially telling gun owners they're seeking a checkup or an education comes with the risk of losing their constitutional rights. Again, running people away from education, running people away from Colorado. The irony is staggering. While we're told police shouldn't enforce immigration laws because it might make people afraid to seek help, yet Democrats are doing exactly the opposite to Colorado citizens. The bill creates a massive chilling effect on mental health. If gun owners know that behavioral health co-responders or the hospital administrator can file a petition behind their back, they will simply stop seeking care. Instead of helping people, this bill drives them into the shadows, making everyone less safe just to score political points against the Second Amendment. It makes people a slave. This isn't about perfecting the law, it's about making Colorado a hostile environment for law-abiding gun owners. We correctly warn that these orders are ripe for retribution and abuse and stripping citizens of their property and rights without a single crime being committed or a fair hearing being held. This bill heads to the Senate floor. One thing is clear. Current leadership is more interested in confiscation and control than actual common sense solutions. I say we're headed to war because they're making it that way. And here's a new bill, by the way. It's very clear in the Constitution. It says the Second Amendment shall not be infringed, that gun rights are enumerated in the Constitution. But there's a bill called SB 2643, a bill to criminalize private sales of firearm barrels, is now in the Colorado Senate. The bill was introduced by Tom Sullivan, Representative Meg Froelich, and Representative Kyle Brown. It was actually put on by a guy named, what's his name again? Bloomberg. So you have people in other states that are coming here to Colorado and doing everything they can to destroy everything that this great state represents. Let me tell you about having to serialize barrels. You can't put a barrel together by itself without a lower. So what you're doing is creating more liability and more burden for the people of Colorado because you hate the people of Colorado, because you were selected, never elected. You're a bunch of dweebs, weak people that have done everything you can to destroy this country and to destroy the state. One by one, you've done it. You have Jared Polis, the fat gay dude that, frankly, running away from any sort of accountability that over the last 7 years has made this place very unsafe. And it's not about him being gay. It's about the fact that he's disgusting. He's a deviant. And then you put on top of that the other two that roll out this cartel, the Phil Weasel Weiser, the AG, who frankly has committed crimes and was a part of a $15 million bribery scheme that involved the Colorado Supreme Court, the AUSA, and multiple attorneys and judges inside of the Colorado District Office in Denver, Colorado. Then you have Jenna Griswold, who sent out 30,000 ballots to illegals and then posted the passwords to the system publicly on the Secretary of State's website, the same thing that they said that Tina Peters did. You have criminals that are running the state of Colorado, and you have criminals inside the legislature. It is a captured state. So if I had anything to say to President Trump about it, I'd say, here's what I really want you to do. I want you to throw them all out. I want you to make it so abundantly clear that our election systems have been fraudulent for so long, we now have proved over 70 countries, and that our intelligence community was a part of it. We've been this way for so long that now we just need to repeal all the last 2 decades, throw all the judges out, re-elect, and put people in positions of trust and authority, rip the Band-Aid off, and have a Caesar moment. We need a Caesar moment in the state of Colorado, and in many states, but especially here in Colorado. When we talk about all of this stuff, I'm going to play something for you that I think is important. These are teachers in Colorado. And I want you to listen to these teachers. And I said this yesterday on a 30-minute video that I did that I placed everywhere. When teachers become indoctrinators and become propagandists, then parents, sooner or later, will make them the target. We'll know who they are. And if you want to see real people that get backed into a corner that are losing their children, what they do when they realize who's doing it, it's not going to fare well. Go ahead and play it.
School shut down completely.
Yes, and because of that, other schools in our network shut down, and our high school that's right next door shut down. At my school, almost everybody called out today when we heard the national call. It was electric. Everybody wanted to be a part of it.
Shut it down. Strike. The only power we have is the power to close the economy down. All of us need to do this thing. We need to do it for our students.
I'm a history teacher, so we teach oppression and resistance in schools. I thought it was really important to show them that these things are occurring in their neighborhoods and in their communities.
How can I tell my kids that they can take civic action and they can do these amazing, wonderful things if I'm not willing to also be brave and do them myself?
That's right.
So, and also got to defend them too.
We're here to show that we will not let ICE intimidate our community. There are more of us than there are of them, and we know that when we're motivated by our love for our students and for our communities, that we're on the right side of history.
I read history, and this looks a lot like something that happened in Germany in about 1933 or 1934, and I don't want that to happen to the kids that I teach every day. And we need to show our students that we put our money where our mouth is, and that we are willing to take it to the street and to take a risk to protect them.
When the devil tells you who he is, believe him. These are teachers that said that they have to show them that they're willing to take it to the street and take a risk to protect them. Let me just tell you what the irony is of those statements. ICE wants to arrest criminal, illegal aliens in the state of Colorado and Michigan, California, every state. These are people that have committed crimes, some of them against students, just like the students that they have rallied on the street. Kids are impressionable. So you put radical ideologues on the street. You have them teach, as she said, teach them about social justice and how to fight. Notice that they don't talk anything about the most fundamental things that a student needs in order to be successful in life. How about math, science, civics, the Constitution? I had a conversation with a couple students a couple days ago, and I said, what's the 14th Amendment? And they're like, we don't know. I said, what's the 4th Amendment? They're like, yeah, I don't know. I said, what's the First Amendment? And they said, freedom of speech. I said, what else? They didn't know. They were 16, 16, and 18 years old. There's 3 of them. So you had an 18-year-old and 2 16-year-olds that grew up in suburbia that did really well. I mean, they were in a red part of the state. But here's the problem. Nothing's red anymore. See, through the Department of Education, they have had radicals slowly boil the school system and create mechanisms, density, by student unions, teachers unions, by all of these different mechanisms that they have in order to put messages in front of our children that are near the edges of not just ridiculous, but evil. It's not about truth, it's about what they can do to destroy everything that is good about our nation. And you could see that the teachers all did it with a smile. That's what we face. That's what we face. So when you have to ask yourself why we're in the position we're in, it's not hard to see. Yesterday, I also talked about a guy on the streets. He's a 24-year-old. Put up this post, please. 16th Street murderer is 24-year-old Elijah David Caudill. Unsurprisingly, he has a long and violent criminal record. It looks like he was out on a $100 bond, so $10 for sexual contact, no consent. Charged from January of 2024. Saturday and Sunday, Elijah killed 2 innocent bystanders and stabbed 2 more. Saturday, 16th in Tremont, 512. 16th in California, 515, deadly. And 16th in Lawrence, 554. Sunday, 16th in Market, 8 p.m., another deadly encounter where he killed someone else. It's 2 days. It took the police almost 40 minutes to show up. The woman killed Saturday at 16th in Cali was a flight attendant for American Air who was here exploring the city on a layover. American rerouted their accommodations out of Denver to a hotel by Denver Airport. Mayor Mike Johnston is about to spend $500 million to revitalize a vacant and unsafe downtown. No one wants to visit Denver. And here's news about the attacker that I think is important. The guy that was charged with 4 stabbings, 2 of them fatal. He was found incompetent to stand trial. Same thing, 9 News, glazing over the reality of what happened. The man accused of stabbing people to death goes through the same thing of who he is. Take it down. I'm going to show you something else really quick. This is, I think, probably the most disturbing because this comes from the Aurora Police Department. One of the reasons why I'm running for governor is because I want a zero tolerance on criminals. I want a pathway for criminals to be rehabilitated, but we don't have a system that does that either. We have a system that treats people like animals and does it for profit. Let me read this one to you and tell me what you think. 2 investigations by our Internet Crimes Against Children unit led us to the arrest of 2 Aurora men with more than 17,000 images and videos of children's sexual abuse material. Let that sink in. 17,000 images and videos, every image, every video, a real child being abused. Both cases began with cyber tips from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children flagging online accounts sharing or possessing child sexual abuse material. From there, ICAC got to work. Detectives traced the online activity and found the homes of the two suspects. Search warrants were obtained and served at those homes. Multiple electronic devices were found and seized. That's when the thousands of images and videos were recovered. The suspects are 53-year-old Orlando Archuleta, 5 felony counts of sexual exploitation of a child, more than 15,000 images recovered from the seized devices. 37-year-old Demeshov Yusupov, 7 felony counts of sexual exploitation of a child, 69 images or more, and more than 2,600 videos recovered. Get ready for this. You ready? Despite the severity of these crimes and volume of evidence, both suspects are currently free on a $10,000 bond. The investigations are detailed, time-consuming, and emotionally demanding. They rely on specialized training and close coordination with local, state, and federal partners. Our ICAC detectives will continue to work every day to identify offenders, hold them accountable, and fight for victims who deserve protection, dignity, and justice. The investigations are active and ongoing. Anyone with information are asked to contact Metro Crime Stoppers. And you got the 2 pictures. All right, I'm going to pray it out. These, by the way, are illegals, I was told. These are what the teachers are fighting for, is people that would exploit children. You have people that would exploit children, and a governor that allows it to happen because he's a deviant, and you have an AG that wants to put people like Tina Peters in jail and built an entire elaborate scheme and conspired with others to put a 70-year-old Gold Star mom in prison for 9 years, and made sure that the tentacles of not just the Democrats and the Republicans, this uniparty, the haves, were able to destroy families, hurt people, allow people to get murdered on the streets, all because they want to let criminals come out and victimize people. And then they want to tell you that you should be afraid of ICE because they're going to clean up the streets and make your family safer. But they're doing it for your own good. That's the devil telling you that they're here to kill you and destroy you, and then covering it up and saying, oh, I'm actually here to help. Well, they're not. All right, let's pray. Whew, Father God, we know that we face just a lot of stuff. We have a lot of things going on, and we are grateful for the beautiful things that you have in our lives. We're grateful for the relationships that we have. We're grateful for the conversations we're able to have with people like Graham and the people online that contributed to this amazing podcast. Father, we're grateful for being able to be born at a time such as this, to be able to see these issues that we face and to be conduits for the success of restoration, restore you to our community and to our country. Father, please help us that we may maintain our courage and commitment, that we may be okay with whatever sacrifices are necessary in order to have that restoration occur. And help us, Father, that we may maintain and make sure that we stay focused on the truth no matter where it takes us. We're grateful, Father, for our leaders. I ask you to please be with President Trump and the others that are in leadership. Help them to push further in so that we can have a bold and courageous stand against this evil that has consumed our communities, consumed our country, consumed the world. Father, I just ask a special blessing over England and the people there, that they may be free from the bondage that they are put in. Father, I just ask you to give us the wisdom to be able to fight through this and the tenacity to build whatever is needed to be built and whatever relationships need to be put together in order to give us an ability to see through all of this evil and get to a conclusion that eliminates that evil from our grip. Father, I ask these things humbly in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day. It's so nice to see you guys from England, from across the pond.
you should have blocked your daughter's name off that X post. What? I didn't have anything on for my daughter. I don't know what you're talking about, Jeff. Send me a text. Anyway, God bless you all. It's good to see you. Susan, always good to see you. For those of you that are over there, you can follow me at Joe Oltmann, JoeOltmann, or follow Joe Untamed. That's the same one over there on X as well. I get a little spicy, so if you're wanting someone that's not going to be spicy, that's not me. I'm a fighter. I'm a warrior. Show up every day. I want to bring you truth, and frankly, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So if you're looking for that, I can't help you. But if you're looking for truth, I'll give it to you. I'm also on Facebook if you want to go there. Again, same of the same. You can just find me over there. But I look forward to having that conversation again with Graham. In the meantime, be good, stand together, build a fraternity, and put on the full armor of God. God bless you.
Rising from the fight for the forgotten and the free, exposing rigged machines, Kuma's lies, dominions deceit, pays a grand each day, shielding truth from corrupt halls, but he won't back down, standing tall through it all. Martin, Tina Peters break the chains that bind her tight, hand count votes and one day bring the fraud to light. No more mailing scams, no machines to steal the night, restore the people's voice, make Colorado right. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true, badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through. Abolish property tax, cut the tolls away, shrink the bloated state, let the people have their say. It's our rally call, truth and freedom rise and watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud, we'll be one man for the people, set our great state free. Help the single moms, bring back trade school strong, opportunity for youth, where the brave belong. Audit every NGO, ban the wolves that roam, reclaim our stolen land, bring the power home. Eric Kuma's fraud, dominions, rig design, expose the stolen votes, cross a dangerous line. No more victimhood, no chains on you and me. He's running for governor for real liberty. Smash the fraud machine, pardon heroes jailed for the have-nots. Rising truth will never fail. One warrior defies the corrupt elite. Colorado reborn, strong on our feet. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Badass for the have-nots, fighting through and through. Abolish property tax, cut the tolls away, shrink the bloated state, let the people have the say. Governor Oltmann, it's our rally call, truth and freedom rise and watch the tyrants fall. Untamed Colorado, strong and proud, we'll be one man for the people, set our great state free. Whoa, 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 whoa. Governor Oltmann, lead us bold and true. Governor Oltmann, freedom forever, Colorado rise. Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Oltmann, Governor Rise up untamed, in the heart of the fight where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back. back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real. No more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave